Welcome to Saving Us, where we discuss relationships in marriage, family, and beyond. Relationships are hard work and should be a priority. These discussions are here to help you navigate the waters of insecurity and frustration and hopefully guide you to a place of peaceful fulfillment in your own relationships. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saving Us. I am your host, Deetra Carter, and this is my co-host,
Michael.
And today on Saving Us, we're talking about blended families. Are they soups? Are they salads? So are they just tossed together where you can see all the individual pieces, but you eat it like a meal? Or are you a soup where you can't tell what's in it sometimes, but it all tastes really good when it goes down? So that's what we want to talk about. Michael just looked up a study recently, and in the study, it said that 60 to 70% of marriages involving children from a previous marriage are likely to fail. 60 to 70% more than a marriage not involving children from a previous marriage. So we want to talk about why we think that is. And as we go into our discussion today, we'll talk a little bit about our own experiences and then end on a positive note, because blended families do not have to fail. They can be successful.
Yes,
so
they can.
First of all, let's talk about why we think, Michael, why do you think blended families fail more?
Well, I think that expectations going in is a big thing. You know, what you expect. Do you expect anything? False expectations, all of those things. I think the biggest thing is just not knowing what to expect and not talking about that, you know. Or as you get into the marriage, you know, you expect one thing and all of a sudden it's something drastically different. I know that's probably with any marriage, but especially with blended families, I think. There's this notion, you know, we're talking about this because we're a blended family.
We are a blended family, yeah.
There's this notion, I think, and it wasn't just me, because I've talked to a lot of people about this, that it should just meld together. You know, I have kids, or I know you have kids, or whatever it is. You knew that when we were dating or when we were going out. So when we get married, you know,
you already knew, right?
Just work. Yeah, you already knew. It should just work. But there's a whole lot that goes into it that's under that expectation umbrella.
Yeah. I think so too. I think it may be different for people who when both spouses have children from a previous marriage, because maybe they do go into it with a knowing. Maybe it's a little easier is what I'm thinking.
That could be.
Because they already know what it is to raise children, and they have more clear expectations than if one person does not have children and the other person does.
Right.
Because if you've never had children, you don't know what to expect. I mean, there is no way really for you to know. As much as you could research and look at other families and all of that, it's just like having your own child. You know, before you become a parent, you really don't know what to expect, and you don't know what you're going to get. Your child could come out with special needs, you know, or cranky or laid back, or you don't know. So you don't know until you get into it.
Right. So people think because I watch my nieces and nephews, you know, I know kids. And
when you can send them back when they get on your nerves, and you can't do that when you have your own kid. You don't have to discipline your nieces and nephews to the same extent that you would your own children. So the expectations, I think, is a really big thing. And just not for as a person, from my experience, as a person who did not have children before I got married, not knowing what to expect, not knowing what you don't know was a big thing for me. And I
not knowing what
think it would be a big thing for other people, just getting into the situation and be like, this is what I signed up for? I did not know this. You know, that kind of thing. But as far as marriage, the marriage not living up to your expectation. Now, I think that is situational too. Because if both parties have been married before, then they may know, at least they know what they don't want in a marriage. I would hope you would not get married again if you didn't know what you don't want in marriage. So at least they would know that, and they would have had the experience of being married before and kind of know how it could or could not go. If you've never been married before, you don't know what to expect. The only thing you know is what you've seen with the relatives and friends,
Right.
who have been married. But you don't have that inside perspective
Right.
like you would have if you've been married before. So
Yeah, and there's no
expectation,
way. I mean,
there is no way to know.
yeah,
There is
yeah.
no way to know unless you get into it. So you have to, there's a lot of trust involved
Right,
in that. A
yeah.
lot of faith, I should say, involved in that.
Yeah, that's true, and
Yeah.
that's what you have to know that you don't know. In other words,
That's what's good to know. Yeah.
You have to realize I don't know
You're right.
what is going to happen.
Right.
I don't know what to expect, and so I'm going to have to be ready.
So you have to be an adventurous person, I would think, to be a part of a blended family. You have to have some sense of adventure because if it's
pretty
nothing
good.
else, it will be adventurous.
That's for sure.
So you have to learn how to roll with the punches. Just ride the roller coaster and get to the end and go woo.
right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
What does marriage in a blended family, really marriage in any family, but specifically blended families, what does it expose? What in a marriage?
Right. Well, marriage itself, I think, just exposes a lot of things, period. It exposes you, how you really are in situations,
Sure.
Because you have somebody now you're with, while you're not with them 24/7 necessarily, but, in a sense you are. You're with them all the time. They ain't going to go away. You look, they still there.
Right.
So how you really are eventually comes out. But I think with blended families specifically, it exposes the importance, and you've said this before, of clear communication.
Yeah.
The importance of not communicating, but clear communication. You understand what I'm saying? Do I understand what you're saying? Do I understand what you want,
Right.
what you expect to happen?
Yeah.
All of that. So, and it's, in different areas. I mean, like a big one, I think, is the disciplining of children.
Children, right? Because all children will have to be disciplined at one time or another.
Yes,
so,
they will.
When you come before getting married, I would suggest that people talk about their take on disciplining. What is their perspective on how children should be raised? What is important to them? Is a strict household very important?
Right.
Or are you more laid back? Is it important to sit at the table and eat? Or is it okay if everybody sits around the TV? Is it important to go to bed at a certain time? Or, a certain routine? Is that important to one spouse or the other? Grades, what do you expect? Social life?
All that.
All
Yeah,
of
that's
those
good.
things. Working, like if you have preteens that are going to want to work, in a couple of years, one spouse might say, oh, kids don't need to work at all, just focus on school. The other spouse might be like, it's good to work,
Right, right.
So that could be a thing. Just so many
Yeah.
things to think about.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
is true.
as far
That
as
is true.
how you're going to run your household and what is important to you and what you expect of each other in different situations. Like if I have my child, if I'm the biological child, and I don't mind if my kid takes dinner up to their room, right? So what is my expectation from the spouse, even if I'm not home? Are they going to demand that child sits at the table because I'm not home? Or are they just gonna be like, you follow your biological parents' rules?
Right.
And what is the threshold? Like what is so important that the step parent feels like they need to step in and something needs to go their way.
Right.
that kind of thing. So it's a lot of stuff to think about.
Right. And I grew up in a blended family, my stepfather, and he had kids, but then they were older, except one. I have a stepsister who lived with us for a time. But I saw the dynamic between my mom and dad. I just know him as dad because he got married they got married when I was 11. So and I quickly took to him and called him dad. But I see some of the things that they had to deal with. As it dealt with discipline and all the stuff that you're talking about. No, you're not allowed to eat in the living room, or all the little things that you think are just.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. We'll work it out.
Right.
And really, you need to talk about all that
You
up
really
front. Every
do.
little thing you need
really
to
do.
discuss up front. You know, I mean, discipline. You know, that's a big thing too. You know, my dad. You know, he was a big person on using the belt. You know, well, of course, both my mom and dad spanked, so they didn't have any problem in that area. He used the belt. My mom, you know, she'd use anything. So
I think that's
it don't
common
matter.
for mothers.
I don't know what it is. She used a hairbrush. You know, it doesn't matter.
Whatever's in your hand at the time.
Exactly. So, but I mean, yeah, all of those things, even something that you think is real small, it should be discussed.
Yes.
If you could, you know, as it comes up, discuss it. You know, even though you don't think it's that important.
Yeah.
So
For sure. That's the same with biological. Like if you two single people, people who don't have kids before they get married,
Right.
when they have a kid, to discuss those things too, because they don't come out until you're in the situation.
Right.
If you don't talk about it
right.
ahead of time.
Exactly.
So-
and you know, talking about children too, throw it in there is, you know, like our situation. We came into the marriage. I had kids already. Then we had kids. Now, as time goes by, how is that dynamic in terms of not from the children's perspective? I know we're going to talk about that next time, but how it affects the children. But discipline, not just disciplining the stepchildren, but
Right.
are the biological kids of both parents
Right.
treated any
Differently than the kids who were
because
just
there's
of one parent.
right? Because there's another parent involved,
Right.
You know, and that's which
Yeah,
leads us to
you
another
have to
thing.
think about that too.
Right.
And I think sometimes, I know on my part, some family members were like, "Ooh, it's my oldest. She's spoiled," and I don't know. I don't know if that was because she was our biological, that other people saw that that way. I do not know, to be honest. I don't. I just remember comments, a couple of comments in that area. So that is something else to be aware of, because you don't want to show that favoritism. But for you, well, all the kids are yours biologically, so I don't think there is any difference, because you know
Right, yeah.
they're all yours.
Yeah.
But if you are the step parent, that's something to be very aware of. Like how are you treating? Is everybody treated equally?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that is age appropriate, because you know
Right.
if you have a big age difference, you're not going to be treated the same. But yeah, is everybody treated equally according to their age and their environment?
Right. And then on top of that, now another thing thrown into that too is because you mentioned that all the kids of ours are biologically mine, but also the other thing to think about is now we can talk about how the kids that are ours biologically, how we're going to discipline them, how we're going to treat them. The others, we want to treat them the same, but again, it leads to this other thing where the other parent is involved.
Right. You have to be aware that they have to adjust to two households
Right.
in many cases. Well, that's our case anyway, that our kids had to adjust to two households. So as a parent, you need to be aware of that and have some compassion on the children. And you know, and know, just like it takes you some time to adjust to new situations when you have to move back and forth, it will take them time to adjust as well. And if they're in the situation where they have to switch households every other weekend or every other holiday or summers, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard on them as well as much as it is on you, but probably even harder because you're not the one moving households. They are.
Right.
So we have to be aware of that and just have compassion with the children for a while and be emotionally mature enough to handle the situation yourself as an adult, which you should be. If nothing else, being a part of a blended family should help you to mature emotionally and be responsible for what comes out of your mouth.
Right. That's true. But while we're on that, talking about the other parent being involved, you know, you were talking about what does it expose when you have a blended family like that is the expectation of the relationship
With the other parent.
with the other parent. Right. The two that were married or
had the
even if they
children
weren't, but they had the
together.
children. Yeah, the two that had the children.
Right.
What's the expectation of that spouse
with their relationship.
with their relationship?
Right.
And that needs to be. I think that's another one of those things that you think, well, we all know the deal. You know, we're married now, and so you're with me, and but I know that he's the parent or she's also a parent, so I know they're going to have a say, but we'll just work that out. Leaving it there that's not enough, because as you said earlier, you deal with things as they come up,
Right.
and you don't know what's going to come up,
Right.
You don't know what situation you're going to be put in, whatever it may be, and so boundaries.
Set boundaries.
Let's discuss our boundaries, and that, that probably should be discussed with everybody.
Yes.
First with the married couple, because now you married.
Right.
You won.
Right.
And so no matter what, y'all two should be together.
Right.
It's you against
Come
the world.
into agreement. Right.
And so first there, but then also
with all the parents.
All the parents
all
together.
The parents should be involved in discussions before the marriage. And I know that sounds very strange to somebody who's never been married before. Like, how am I, because you might think from the female perspective, how am I going to let my husband's ex be involved in my relationship with them?
Yeah.
But you have to remember, when somebody comes with children, those children will never, ever, 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 ever go away unless they die, and you do not want that to happen.
Right.
So you have to know
not.
what you're getting into. That child's parent is going to be in your life for the rest of your life. Just look at it like that.
Right.
That whole family is going to be in your life for the rest of your life if this is the choice that you're making. So you have to have clear communication about what is expected, because mothers are territorial of their children,
Of
and
course.
a lot of times they don't want anybody else to say anything to their children. So you need to know that before you get into the situation.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So thinking about all that, if we had to do it over, which is impossible. It will never happen. You can't go back. There's no time machine. Even
Right.
though you see that in the movies, it's not there.
Yeah.
But just saying, if you had it to do it, knowing what we know now, how do you think we would come into the situation? Because it may help somebody else who's thinking about making this decision.
Right. So I think for myself, I thought I was so wise when I got married, and I thought I came in with my eyes wide open, which I did.
Wise?
Which I did. I tried to think of all the scenarios and just know what I was getting into. But there's so many things that I didn't know I didn't know.
Right.
So
Right.
I could not anticipate many things. So I think if I did it all over again, I think taking my time would be a bigger thing. In my opinion, if you're going to marry somebody who has children, really take a long time to get to know them and get to know their children, and get to like them, or find out if they like you or if they don't, and get to know their family and how it works. How are they doing holidays already, even as a separated couple?
Right.
What is their arrangement already with school and holidays and
Right,
going
right,
back to
right.
school? And like if someone dies in their the other parent's family, like, is your husband gonna feel obligated to go and to the funerals and wakes and be supportive to that child's other parent, and is that going to be okay with you?
Right.
Those kinds of things.
Those are big things.
Yeah. So take your time and get to observe their family dynamic for a while to see if that's something you really want to get into.
Right. That's good. That's really good. I think, and that, just really brings you to, at some point, once you have to discuss those things, and then parents have to trust each other. You're going to have to develop a trust, because if you're always like, well, from the perspective of, you're always talking to, your ex about the kids, and what else are you talking about, and all that kind of thing, or just whatever it is, or if it's if the kids are my biological children, but not yours, for example, and I go away, I'm trusting you to
take care of them,
take care of them the way
well-being.
you would yours.
Exactly. So
ours.
that takes a lot of trust, because we've all heard of those situations when the biological parent is not around and then the step parent is evil. That's
Right.
where we get the evil
Right.
stepmother
Evil
from,
stepmother,
right?
yeah.
Because they change, when that spouse is not around. So that's why I say take your time.
Take your time.
Yes, and as the biological parent, listen to your children. Talk to your children. Ask their opinion. Take their opinion into consideration before you decide to move forward in that relationship. Because the new marriage is not just your new marriage; it's the whole family's new marriage. So the kids need to be involved. They can't run your life, but they are a big part.
Right.
So you really need to take them into consideration.
Yeah. That's good.
So we're going to move on to what we can learn.
Right.
What positive things can we learn
Yes.
from being in a blended family?
Yeah.
So the first one we want to talk about is learning how to love unconditionally, which you also get if you're not in a blended family, just because being in relationship,
Right.
hopefully
Period.
in a marriage relationship, will teach you how to love unconditionally, but especially with your children, biological or not, because we never know what kind of kids we're going to get. Biological, adopted, foster,
Right.
or step. You don't know the experiences you're going to go through as a parent with them, and you don't know what's going to come up. Anybody could get into an accident. Just different events happen.
Right.
So we learning how to love unconditionally the way we are loved by God. Okay, so learning what that means is so important, and it's easy. Being in a blended family is a great opportunity to learn
Right.
what unconditional love means.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I think another thing that you learn is you learn humility.
Yeah.
Not just what humility means, but you learn humility yourself, because it takes that. In addition to trust, there are going to be times, and as you say, in any relationship is this way, and especially a marriage relationship is this way. You're not going to get your way every time.
Right.
And you may feel like, both people may feel like, I don't ever get my way. It just may seem like that. Just because you're used to getting your way.
Right.
But especially with a blended family, with all the dynamics, with children, with step, with other parent, with all of this, it's going to teach you humility. I'm going to have to humble myself and say, all right, there's a bigger picture here than just what I want to happen, but what's best for the family.
What is best for the family? Yes, not what's best for you, but what is best for the family. Now, sometimes what's best for the family will also feel like what's best for you, but sometimes not. So
Right.
you have to learn how to deal with that. Yes, learn to be humble, learn how to forgive, and learn how to receive forgiveness. How to recognize
Yes, that's
that
good.
you will make mistakes.
Right.
Sometimes you will react instead of consider in situations. You'll just move out of your emotions, and when that happens, you have to learn how to ask for forgiveness, and just to be transparent and say, I messed up.
Yep, that's a
I'm
tough one.
sorry. Help me to do better.
It's tougher than it sounds.
Yes, for sure. We'll follow that up with learning how to sacrifice. Right?
Yeah.
How to sacrifice for your family. So I think this may be a little harder. I know that, I would hope, oftentimes when people who have children get married, they're going to be older rather than younger.
Right. Yeah.
Which means that you're going to be used to doing things your way. I guess depending on how long you've been a single parent. You've run that household, you know just how it's going to go, and things go your way because you don't have a spouse to consider.
Right.
So when you get married,
Here you go.
there's a whole new level of
There we go.
sacrifice there.
Yes.
And learning how to compromise and work with that other person and sacrifice what you want in a lot of situations. So
Right.
that's a positive thing. It's not it's not negative. It doesn't feel good because who wants to not get their way? But
Right.
but it's a positive thing because it helps us to grow. that helps us become mature. So
Yeah. So in other words, you can do it, right?
you can. It is possible to be in a blended family and not just exist in a blended family, or not just white knuckle it through
Right.
and just hold on.
Yeah,
It's possible to be content, to be happy, to be fulfilled in a blended family.
Yeah. Every family's different.
That's right. Every family is different. So try to stay away from that evil of comparison.
Yeah. Right.
And just because you grew up in a blended family and you had certain experiences, or you observed blended families that have had certain experiences, doesn't mean your experience will be the same, positive or negative.
Right.
So know that your experience is your own.
Right.
And make it what you want it to be.
Right. Yeah. All right. You can do this.
You can.
You can do this.
And that's our take on saving us. If you enjoyed what you heard and you want to save the relationships in your life, please click the subscribe button below and share this podcast with a friend.